As we hear more often these days, literacy has to begin from an early age and continue year-round. That's the main reason for the city's effort through ReadBoston. To bring us up to date on the program is the Deputy Director of ReadBoston and Boston Saves from the Mayor's Office of Workforce Development, Kerri Schmidt. Thank you very much for being with us, Kerri.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for the opportunity.
ReadBoston is not the only piece of the literacy effort, but talk about what is it that your program specializes on?
I would love to tell you about two key programs that we have right now. One is our Parent Literacy Leadership Program, and that is a workforce and literacy effort to get early literacy information out into all of the communities. Our model is very simple. We recruit parents from across the city, and we give them 25 hours of intensive early literacy content and leadership training, and they're paid for the time that they spend with us. And then they go back out into their communities representing ReadBoston with materials and books, multilingual materials, and they go back and share why it's important to talk and read and sing and play with your child at home in your home language during those really early years of life.
We'll start with the more general factor here, that is the importance of early literacy. We're not talking about learning to read in a classroom. We're talking what happens years before that.
Right. So I brought an illustrative model to share. And one thing that we talk about is how quickly the brain develops in the first 3 years of life. And so there's this wonderful window of opportunity. And it's a very rich literacy time in a child's life. And every parent wants the best for their child, but we don't always have the information that we need to take advantage of the critical time. And so a visual is that this is a brand new baby's brain. It's 1 pound. Full-term child, and then when the same child reaches their 3rd birthday, their brain has grown up to 80% of its adult weight. And so it's like a giant sponge during those first 3 years of life. And sharing that information with families and providing them with the foundational information that they need, and then giving them resources, books in their home language, how to read with babies and toddlers and preschoolers, and that it's all critically important to be done in the language that you're most comfortable in. And so if you're new to this country and you don't feel proficient in English, you want to do this with your child in your home language.
I grew up at a time when families were larger, moms were more likely to be at home, so there's more conversation, the young kid talking to older kids and adults. These days, a child who's not learning is going to be parked in front of a TV. What's the difference between being parked in front of a TV and actually interacting with real people?
Well, with babies, for instance, like having that FaceTime with a young child, young babies are learning language by watching. All of the emotional responses that are happening as well are cues and indicators. As the child grows older, providing that space for a young person to have the opportunity to have a back and forth with the adult. And so even if the baby, for instance, is cooing, pausing and responding to that coo. And when a young child, a toddler says, ga, and you're like, that's right, that's a bottle. That's the bottle that we're going to fill up today. So acknowledging where your child's at, responding to what they say, and then providing more language around that. And that little brain is absorbing all of it.
This is BNN News, and we're talking with Kerri Schmidt from ReadBoston. Kerri, talk about the multilingual effort here, because we have a lot of adults in the city who really struggle with English, but they're also very literate in their native language. So explain the importance of helping children who are probably going to be living in an English language environment.
Right. I'm going to speak directly to the power of having multiple languages. For young children, Boston Public Schools recognizes 9 major languages. That's a lot. We have an incredibly diverse city. And a child who grows up in a very rich language environment at home, where they're speaking Haitian Creole with their parents and their grandparents, and they're deeply embedded in their culture and their language, that child actually, we know, does better ultimately, linguistically, in their reading and their literacy scores moving along when they have the foundation of one language in which they can build English on the other.
Now explain how you work from that principle by helping the parents, because we all can use a little help.
We can all use a little
Right.
help. So I think that encouraging parents to communicate with their children, to honor their language, to communicate with their children in the language they're most comfortable in is critical and most important. And I also want to stretch that a little bit by saying that the city of Boston has an amazing amount of rich resources for families who are looking to strengthen their own comfort level around English language, and so free resources around the city to bolster their own competency in English.
Well, one of the other things you're trying to do right now is get support for a summertime effort, the Storymobile.
Yes. So we have a summer Storymobile program. This year it's running 4 weeks from July 10th to August 4th. It will be in 40 locations throughout the city every week. And last summer we gave away over 25,000 brand new books to kids who attended. The goal of Storymobile, well, the purpose of Storymobile is to help with the summer learning loss. When kids are away from school, especially low-income children, perhaps may not have as much access to literacy materials and so aren't reading as much, and they have a slide. And so to give them that to bolster them through the summertime so that they're coming back to school ready to learn. The Storymobile goes around and provides a 1-hour engagement where there is a professional storyteller who takes the audience through engaging stories, and at the end we spread out tables full of books, and each child goes and picks their own book to take home, which is very, very powerful for motivating a kid to read.
Finally, we should mention if people want to find out some more information about what's happening with Read Boston, you have a place online they can go for that?
Yes, we do. It's readboston.org, and we'd love you to visit. There's a donation button on the website. $3 buys a brand new book for a child. So every single penny counts. We'd love your support.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Kerri Schmidt from Read Boston.